Oh boy. Oh boy. Have you ever like dreaded making a video? like I want to make this video and I've been like putting it off and now the time has come and now it's time for me to like finally make this video. Holy crap, I have a lot to talk about and a lot to unpack. This is nuts. So today we're talking about Joel Chandler Harris's Song of the South, because all I hear since they announced Disney Plus is, are you going to allow Song of the South on Disney Plus? Are you going to allow Song of the South on Disney Plus? The story is very insane. It's a very insane story. It's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to talk about. But in order to talk about Song of the South, we got to talk about the one key player in all of this. And that's Joel Chandler Harris. So this isn't a complete history lesson because his life is very layered, but this is kind of a crazy story anyway. So Joel Chandler Harris, he was from Georgia, you know, I think it's like Eatonton, Georgia. He's kind of a legend in Savannah. If you go to Savannah, that's kind of where I got my copy of Song of the South. You can literally find this copy everywhere in Savannah, Georgia. Well, in Savannah, Georgia, this book like blew up. It blew up out of nowhere. It became this really popular book for the craziest reasons. I mean, like, he had like good intentions, is just bad execution at times, because he supported like the New South. He supported Reconstruction, which allowed blacks to be integrated into like society right after slavery. So there was a lot of them that had offices and positions and ran cities and held office, and it was integration until they collapsed it all with the formation of the KKK. It's such a weird story to get into Reconstruction, but that's another story for another time. Joel Chandler Harris, growing up, he was kind of a loner. He didn't have much friends. So a lot of the times he would go and hang out with the slaves, because he grew up on a plantation. So he would hang out with the slaves, and the slaves would talk about the stories of Br'er Rabbit and Br'er Fox and Br'er Bear. And those stories, as a collective that he remembered as a kid, became this book. It became this book, Uncle Remus, his songs and sayings. This book is both insane and the basis of everything that is Song of the South. And one of the interesting things about this book is, you know, anybody could have just wrote a book. They could have wrote the book just as a book is written. You know, you could take any book off the shelf and then read it, and it's written the way it should be written, except for Joel Chandler Harris, who wrote the book exactly as it was told to him. How does that make sense? Well, all the words are written in the language that they would have spoken to. So he wrote it in the phonetic talk of the people telling him the story of Br'er Rabbit. I'll give you an example. I'm going to tell you the story of Mrs. Cow falls victim to Mr. Rabbit. Uncle Remus, said the little boy, what became of the rabbit after he fooled the buzzard and got out of the hollow tree? Who? Br'er Rabbit? Bless your soul, honey. Br'er Rabbit went skipping long home, he did. Des as he sassy as a jaybird as a sparrow's nest. He went galloping long, he did, but he feel mighty tired out and stiff in his jits, and he was mighty nigh dead for something for the drinking, baby. And baby, when he got most home, he spied an old Miss Cow feeding around in his field, he did. And he determined for to try his hand while Br'er Rabbit know mighty well that Miss Cow won't give him no milk, cause she done fools him, I know my once. And when it old man was sick at that, but never mind that. Br'er Rabbit sort of danced up alongside of the fence, he did, and holler out, "Howdy, Sis Cow," says Br'er Rabbit, says he. "Well, howdy, Br'er Rabbit, Miss Cow," says he. "How find yourself these days, Sis Cow?" said Br'er Rabbit, says he. "I'm sort of tolerable, Br'er Rabbit, how you come on," says Miss Cow, says she. "Oh, I'm just tolerable myself," says Cow, sort of linger twixt a bark in their breakdown, says Br'er Rabbit, says he. How your folks, Br'er Rabbit?" says Miss Cow, says she. "They, this middling," says Cow. "How Br'er Bull getting on?" says Br'er Rabbit, says he. "Sorta so," says Miss Cow, says she. "They are some mighty nice Simmons up this tree," says Cow, says Br'er Rabbit, says he. "And I like mighty well for to have some says he. "How do you gonna get 'em, Br'er Rabbit?" says she. "I love maybe Dad might ask you for the butt getting the tree to shake 'em down," says Cow, says Br'er Rabbit, says he. "Cause Miss Cow don't wanna discommemorate Br'er Rabbit, and she done march up the simmon tree she did and hit." This is a lot. It's really hard to read. You get the gist. You get the gist on how it was written, and if you're reading this book for the first time, it's really, really odd. And the fables that come from this book, it's literally half of this book, which a lot of people remember. Which brings you to the next part. People who've ever seen Song of the South, if you say that you watched the movie, how much of the movie do you actually remember? Do you remember the movie? Do you remember watching the movie? Do you remember? What parts do you remember? Do you remember the plot? Do you remember what the live action story was? It's a good chance you don't. Because neither did Walt Disney. Because Walt Disney only remembered this amount of the book. See, Walt Disney really liked the stories of Uncle Remus. Really enjoyed the stories of Uncle Remus. But he didn't read the entire book. As a kid, they told him the fables, and they told him the fables that Joel Chandler Harris wrote. And he grew up with those stories. But he also remembered Br'er Rabbit, Br'er Fox, and Br'er Bear. And I really believe that he really wanted to use those characters at some point in time in his career. But the rest of the book exists. And the rest of the book is insane. Just to go back to the book before we go talking about the movie. But the movie is set up, the book is actually broken down into 3 parts. The first part is plantation sing-alongs, which are hymns that the slaves would sing in the field. The third and last part is Uncle Remus sayings, which aren't fables at all. For example, there is a story. Oh, I don't want to read this. I really don't want to read it. Stories in this book that I think, I don't know if they're fables, but is Joel Chandler Harris like really trying to have his own lessons, but through Uncle Remus, but it's not actual Uncle Remus stories at all. So it's kind of odd when you read some of this stuff, like it's kind of weird. Joel Chandler Harris loves the N-word. He becomes like, he taps into his inner like Quentin Tarantino, and it is just a barrage of it. Put a spelling book in a hands and they're writing a dar, you lose a plow hand. So those are the type of stories that like Joel Chandler Harris like has in the books. They're very, it's as if Uncle Remus is telling it, but not really, but at the same time he's telling it. And in that story, it was a very anti-education story, but it's mostly an anti-black education story. It's odd. It is so flippin' odd, this book. But again, people only remember one half of the book. They don't remember the rest of the book. They only remember the fables. They only remember Br'er Rabbit, Br'er Bear, Br'er Fox. Right? Leads us into the movie itself. Remember, this book was made in the 1800s. 1880, in fact, that this book was made. And that means when 1880 happened, in 1941, they finally got the rights to write the movie of Uncle Remus and this book until Song of the South. Song of the South was adapted by several white people adapting this book, which I believe this movie was a very autobiographical about Joel Chandler Harris's life, because Johnny, played by Bobby Driscoll, who every Disney fan should know who is the voice of Peter Pan. He runs away from home, and his family owns slaves, and Johnny's best friend comes to be Uncle Remus, who Uncle Remus tells him the stories of the Tar Baby and the Laughing Place and the Briar Patch. All those stories, except for the Tar Baby, became Splash Mountain, which exists today, which is the story of the Briar Patch and the story of the Laughing Place. But the entire plot of the Song of the South really starts as Johnny, eventually he becomes friends with Uncle Remus, and he wants to run away because his dad has ran away. His dad dips out at the very beginning of the movie, leaves, gone. Dad, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want any part of Sally, the mom. I'm out. So Johnny befriends Jenny, who is the neighbor girl, and the neighbor girl has a dog. So Johnny gets a dog, and everybody, including Remus, tells him, we don't want a dog. Don't get this dog. Return this dog. Bad idea, Johnny. You can't have a dog. So Johnny listens to nobody and gets the dog anyway. When the mom, Sally, finds out that Johnny has the dog, she tells Johnny, give that dog back. Johnny ignores giving the dog back, to which Sally, the mom, tells Uncle Remus, stop telling him the stories of Br'er Rabbit. What? Uncle Remus did nothing here. He told Johnny to give the dog back. He made it a point. Give the effing dog back. But Johnny just doesn't listen. He just does whatever Johnny does. Go ahead, Johnny. Do whatever you want. Who cares? Who freaking cares? So Johnny, when his back is turned, Uncle Remus returns the dog. That's fine. Return the dog. And then Johnny and Jenny are walking together, and her brothers come out of nowhere and shove Jenny in the mud. And Johnny fights back, only to be saved by Uncle Remus, who got his back. He prevented a major beatdown. A kid had a stick and was going to beat the crap out of Johnny, but Uncle Remus stopped him. Stopped a very violent beatdown. Until Sally told Uncle Remus, you can't see Johnny no more. I don't want you talking to my boy. Uncle Remus saved him from a ass kicking here. Saved him from an ass kicking. Saved his life. What did Johnny do now? Nothing. He got saved from an ass kicking. But so Uncle Remus can't see Johnny anymore. That's perfectly fine. Cool. Great job, Mom. Parenting 101. So what happens next? Uncle Remus is going to leave. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go. I'm going to leave this place. They don't want me here. Uncle Remus goes, leaves. Johnny goes and chases after him, gets trampled by a bull. Trampled by a fucking bull. After Uncle Remus, after the mom said, I want nothing to do with you, now Johnny's trampled by a bull. And the only thing that can save Johnny's life is not modern medicine. It's not a transplant of your spleen. It's not even aspirin. It's Uncle Remus returning and telling him the story of Br'er Rabbit in the laughing place. Johnny's back to health. Everyone's happy. And he gets his dog back. End of story. Yeah. That's the movie. So what's the lesson that you learn in this movie? Well, as long as you have a magical slave who can tell you stories back to health, then that's exactly what you're going to get. A magical slave who can tell you stories and nurse you back to health. The movie is insane. And a lot of people just remember the cartoon, which I think, honestly, Walt Disney really wanted the cartoon. It's kind of hard to look into this movie and say, wow, I really want to see it on Disney Plus. It's not a good movie. The plot's really bad, and it really, really makes the dynamic of whites and African Americans in that original time frame really bad. And it was written really poorly. In fact, the first draft of the story, they wanted to refer to Uncle Remus as Old Darky. Like, every character was going to call him Old Darky. And actually imagine what that would have been like. Is Song of the South racist? Well, yes. It's a movie that it was re-released one other time in 1986. And I think during the time there was still a little bit of an acceptance and an appreciation of what Walt Disney had achieved, especially when it came to the animation and the live action, blending it together. But as time grows on, this story, this book, and the movie, it's very apparent that was for that particular time. It cannot survive anything outside of 1950. Which is funny because when the book was released, it was an instant hit. When the movie was released, it was an instant hit. It did really well, both book and movie, coincidentally. And it did really well as a movie in the black community because there wasn't a whole lot of movies that came out that represented black people in a main starring role. This was a rarity. So this one was a great, at the time, representation of African Americans. Yet, their fear was those African Americans that become more aware of these issues as social issues, this movie is going to become a problem. And it became a problem. And it is still a current problem because of that alone. So it's a strange tale to talk about how, a guy listened to the stories of slaves and then adapted everything they said verbatim, exactly the way they wrote it, made it into a book that was adapted by another group of white people who adapted the same book to make Song of the South into what it is. It's very disturbing. It's a very disturbing tale when you really think about it. And that's the story of Song of the South. It's such insanity. It's an insane story. Do I recommend anyone to go and watch it? I mean, I believe if you can find it on YouTube, you can watch it. But the DVD is literally in Savannah, Georgia, if you can make it through it. But I think a lot of people would watch the, Zippity Doo Dah song and then turn it off immediately because the quality is really bad. This movie is a tour de force. I won't even classify it as a bad movie. It's not really a bad movie, but it's a movie that can't exist outside of a certain time period. Unlike Gone with the Wind, where Gone with the Wind might be able to surpass time, even though I don't believe so, but I think it surpasses any given time to watch Gone with the Wind. This movie doesn't, and is really trapped in an era where things like this was acceptable. That's why you're not going to see it on Disney Plus, and why you're not going to watch it ever again. And that's why I watched it for your entertainment, to give you this Sean commentary about Song of the South and a history about Song of the South. Very abridged, tight little package that you can watch instead of talking about it for a whole hour. If you like this type of content, do me a favor, smash that subscribe button, baby. Leave me a comment down below. If you want me to do a deep dive breakdown of Disney movies like this and all that little fun stuff, let me know. I like doing random different things. If you guys already know, I do a lot of different content. But that's it. I'm done. I am sick of Song of the South. I'm sick of it. I'm probably never gonna. I'll watch the movie one other time. One other time. I have an idea on what I'm gonna do. One more time we'll watch it and get reactions. Thanks for watching. I'm out. Hey, if you like that video, check out this video over here. Or look at this video over here. Smash that subscribe button, baby.